All right, let's go over to the NITI Aayog in the national capital, where a press conference is being addressed on the 9th NITI Aayog Governing Council meeting that took place today.
Which has been meeting since NITI Aayog was created or founded in 2015. The Governing Council includes the Honorable Prime Minister as chairperson, those who are here, members and myself, and also members of the union government, as well as additional members. And you would have seen that the entire composition of the Governing Council of NITI Aayog was announced in a release about a week ago. What is the importance of the meeting of the Governing Council? It is the supreme body where states and the center come together to talk about the development strategy for the country, and it meets in the form of Team India. I think there are two things that are of importance about this particular meeting of the Governing Council. First, that it took place very soon after the historic third term of this government. The second is that it retained the focus on Viksit Bharat at 2047. This had been the subject of last year's Governing Council meeting as well. Of course, since then we've been through an important general election, but I think that if it was the purpose of the Honorable Prime Minister when he spoke from the ramparts of the Red Fort on August 15th, 2022, to launch a national debate on how India should use its Amrit Kal of the next 25 years, I would say that first, he has succeeded. Second, that this is much more about a national mobilization than it is about a particular document. And third, that with the return of this government, it is the central focus of the efforts of government and the states. I'll leave my opening remarks at that. I would now ask CEO NITI Aayog to make his presentation and then ask him to direct questions in the question and answer. So, CEO, could you take over?
Yeah, thank you, Vice VC. Friends, I mean, this is the 9th meeting of the Governing Council of NITI Aayog, and this was announced quite well in advance. The Prime Minister had said pretty much in March that he would be convening a meeting of the Chief Ministers soon after the elections are over, which he did promptly. So soon after the election results, and he was sworn in, he held a meeting, and the date of the meeting was decided as 27th. Of course, the obvious reason being that with the Parliament being in session, everybody is around. So just to, get over what may be exciting some of you, what was the participation like? Then that's what I think, so that's the curiosity all around. We had 10 absentees, so let me be very clear. There were 10 absentees and we had 26 participants. All states and UTs put together are 26 in number, 36 in number, minus 10 absentees, we have 26. Who are the ones which are absent? We had absentees from Kerala. That was indicated much earlier. I mean, pretty much early. I mean, probably 10-12 days ago. We had Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Telangana, Bihar, Delhi, Punjab, Himachal Pradesh. In the last minute, we had a dropout from Jharkhand and Puducherry for some personal reason. Bihar was having an assembly session till late yesterday evening. So there was no way he could have arrived. That was the reason why Bihar didn't come. The Chief Minister of West Bengal, however, was present, and she was also there. You may have seen some flutter here and there, etc. The Chief Minister of West Bengal had made a request to be given a turn before lunchtime. So I'm just putting facts on the ground, no interpretations. It was a very clear request from their side, because normally we would have gone alphabetically. So it begins with Andhra Pradesh, then Arunachal Pradesh, and then it goes on further down, because West Bengal would be W, which would certainly come post lunch session. They wanted a request. It was in writing, and we actually adjusted, and the Raksha Mantri actually called her in just before Gujarat. So she made her statement. Every Chief Minister is allotted 7 minutes, and there's just a clock on top of the screen which tells you the time that is remaining. So it goes from 7 to 6 to 5 to 4 to 3. At the end of that, it shows 00, nothing else. Nothing else has happened other than that. And what happens is, the Raksha Mantri just does that on his table. That's it. And that's it. And then she said that, look, I would have liked to speak for more time, but I'll not speak anymore. That was it. There was nothing more. We all heard. She made her points, and we respectfully heard and noted her points, which will be reflected in the minutes. So I thought I will get over that at the beginning, because I think that's what most people will be curious about. Just to mention the fact, her Chief Secretary continued to attend, and he was in the room even after she left, because she had to catch a flight to Calcutta. She said that she had an assembly session. That's what she told me, in the morning itself she told me. So that's as far as that is concerned. Now coming back, so I'll take about 10 minutes to quickly brief you on the proceedings of the day. The agenda was titled Viksit Bharat, and it had two major items on the agenda. One was an approach paper for preparing a vision document for Viksit Bharat, and the second is the outcomes of the Chief Secretary's conference, which was held in end December, where the theme was ease of living, and certain conclusions were arrived at on 5 sub-themes under ease of living in drinking water, electricity, education, health and land. So those conclusions of the Chief Secretaries were to be discussed and endorsed by the Chief Ministers. There were 2 parts of the agenda. As the Vice Chairman just said briefly, Viksit Bharat is something that the Prime Minister has been emphasizing since Independence Day 2022. From the ramparts of the Red Fort, he said we should start preparing for a Viksit Bharat by 2047. A lot of work has been happening since then. In a way, this is a part of that process. And to just make it more transparent and easier for all of you, we had in the agenda note circulated a document called an approach paper for a vision for Viksit Bharat at 2047, giving justification. Why is a Viksit Bharat plan needed? Why is this the opportune moment? Do you think India has the capabilities? What does Viksit Bharat mean? And what do we all need to do to plan that out? That document will be distributed to at the end of this press conference. I think copies are ready. My officers are there. They will just be distributing it to all of you. Now, a lot of the discussion was on this item. The Prime Minister, in his own opening remarks, emphasized on the need for this. He talked about his own travels around the world. He talked about his experience of G20, and he talked about the goodwill that is there around the world for India, and the need for India, in his own words, to grab the opportunity. And if you don't grab the opportunity, you will lose something which the whole world expects you to do. I think that is something he said. And he said, but a Viksit Bharat, which is a developed India by 2047, cannot be achieved just by wishful thinking. You must have tangible goals which have to be pursued. And he said that the Chief Ministers have a major role in this, and that's why it was being discussed here. It is because a lot of the action for Viksit Bharat is the collective action of states. So his basic request to all the states is, please develop vision plans for yourself, for each state. because Viksit Bharat at the national level is an aggregation of a lot of Viksit states. And to tell you all, the good news is, over the last year, a lot of states have moved ahead in preparing vision documents. Uttarakhand has one, Uttar Pradesh has one, Gujarat has one, Tamil Nadu has one. In the pipeline, we have Goa, we have Madhya Pradesh, we have Chhattisgarh, we have Orissa, we have Assam, and we have a couple of other states also, Bihar, lining up to prepare vision documents. And I think he made it very clear, why does the aspirational district program or the aspirational block program succeed? It succeeds because it is clear, monitorable, with fixed targets. And if you have fixed targets, you know whether you are online or not. I think if you want to achieve Viksit Bharat, you should have fixed targets. So he emphasized that please prepare vision plans where you have targets which are monitored. It may not be for this generation, it may be for the next generation. But it's important that you are on the path from now itself. I think that is something he said. And the second thing, and you will get it from the paper we'll be circulating to you, India has demonstrated its capability in actually setting a target and achieving it. Be it in sports in the Asian Games, be it in Chandrayaan, be it COVID vaccines, be it in science and technology, be it in G20, we have demonstrated our ability to leapfrog and deliver what we promise. The nation, the Prime Minister said, is bursting with energy, competence and confidence. I'm translating into English. See, this is what he said it, I was just noting the same, but this is the correct words. Confidence, energy and competence, it's all around. And it's the job of the leadership of the country at the national level and the state level to fulfill the hopes and aspirations of the people of India. And he said this is a golden opportunity. The second point he said is, it's not by throwing money alone that you can get everything. Money is often not the constraint. It's how you use the money, and more importantly, it's good governance that is necessary. And whether you want to succeed locally or globally, it's good governance and acting together which can take us to the outcome. He also talked about the positivity that is there for FDI around the world towards India. He wanted states to compete with each other to attract FDI into the country. So that, and he wanted a template to be prepared about how good states are. And the specific word he used is an investor-friendly charter. And start an investor-friendly charter and ranking states on how investor-friendly they are. So it's actually a modified version of EODB, ease of doing business, but actually a better one, where it will include a whole host of things like the legal system, what are the laws which are hindrances, what is the reduction in procedures which need to be simplified, what are the incentives that need to be given, how good is the law and order, how good is the transparency, how good is the infrastructure. So he's actually asked NITI to construct an index so states can compete in attracting FDI. End of the day, you can liberalize everything in FDI at the national level. But where the FDI flows is also important. And he made the point that if everything ends up in one corner of India, it's not good for the country. It needs to flow to all corners of the country. And I think he wants to use competitive federalism as a mechanism of doing this. Coming back on ease of living, I don't want to go into details. You can ask any of us later on. But the 5 themes on drinking water, we looked at, the document contained things like access, quality, and reliable quantity of water that is there. I think the Jal Jeevan mission has done very well. We were less than, 16% of the households had tap connections when the program began. It's crossed 76% now. That's phenomenal. In rural areas, in urban areas, it began from 40 and has crossed 70%. Hopefully by the end of next year it would be. The Chief Secretary's conference that discussed, that was on the agenda here. A lot of Chief Ministers spoke about how they are doing in drinking. For example, the LG of J&K said that by December we will be 100% covered by household tap connection. There were discussions on quality, there were issues on maintenance. End of the day, it's not just the tap. Water has to flow and it has to flow continuously. I think those were discussed. Electricity was the other thing on ease of living. It's about electricity connections, quality of supply, fluctuations. There's been a dramatic improvement in the country over the last couple of years. And the question is, what are the best practices, how they can be the Chief Ministers had a lot of things to say on that. The third was healthcare. A lot of programs are there, but there's variable outcomes across the country, and a lot of best practices are there. Tamil Nadu has something on trauma care, Andhra has something on family doctors, Arunachal Pradesh has something called medicine from the sky. They're using drones to deliver medicines in interior area. So they were all there. There are a lot of challenges. This is one of the items. And on schooling, it was not on money and expenditures. It's about, is the school functioning? How easy to get admission? Why do children drop out between classes? And why don't they continue to higher education? So I think one of the conclusions which was put up to them was that there should be a unique AP, APAR ID, APAAR ID for school students. So the moment they fall out of school, doesn't matter any school, but they fall out of the system, you can track them back and bring them back into the system. I think that's a thing. And lastly, on land, there's a lot of things about, it's not about land, it's about ease of access in terms of transferring land, getting it registered, mutated and all that, and building permits. They were all there. So these were the large number of items that were discussed under ease of living. The Prime Minister just said a couple of things which are equally important. He talked about please strengthen districts and make them drivers of growth. In India, districts are the sizes of provinces in other countries. And our states, many of them are the size of countries. I mean, UP is bigger than Brazil, and so on and so forth. So you have to make districts as drivers of growth. He wanted states to, push. He mentioned about the threat posed by cyber security. And he gave examples of how, with increasing use of more and more advanced technology, it is becoming even more difficult. How you can actually have a fake identity of a person actually talking to you 3D, you will not recognize who that person is. So I think he alerted, because we're all vulnerable and states are more vulnerable. They do not have the kind of systems Government of India has in these things. States covered a large number of issues. There were states which talked about the future, about how they are planning for the future. Some of them raised very interesting issues. An important point which was raised by some ministers, chief ministers, and responded to PM is the issue of demographic management. I'm using that word because it was used exactly that way. It is about the country actually aging. Your median age today is 28, 29. By 2047, it will be 38, 39. But the number of old people is going to grow from about 130 crores today, 13 crores today, to about 35 crore people then. But the question is, soon after that, it will become a rapidly aging population. A rapidly aging population means you need to start planning for that from now itself. How are you going to take care of them, both economically, socially, their living conditions, their own, welfare systems? That is one. And of course, some chief ministers talked about, very often trying to change a decline in population at a very late stage may not be successful. And a lot of countries have failed to do it. South Korea is an example, Japan is an example, now China is an example. Maybe some states are thinking in terms of managing demography. Quite different from what we were used to, say, 20 years ago or even 10 years ago. That maybe India has crossed the hump, at least some states have crossed the hump. And they may be running into a declining population scenario. So these were the issues. Some of the other interesting thoughts posed by chief ministers were a skill census. And I think that was an interesting idea which is there. There was another interesting idea on linking of rivers, which was posed. I think the broad consensus is, let's start beginning link rivers within the state itself, so that you can throw surplus waters from one to the other. And as consensus builds, it can be thrown across rivers in neighboring states. A lot of discussion on clean energy, going renewable, going to green, etc. But at the same time, the need to improve base load capacity, which will require nuclear, hydro or thermal. That is one of the important points that was discussed. I think broadly, there was another thing, and I think that's very important. And I think the PM also responded to in his closing remark about zero poverty. I think that was very clearly mentioned. It was raised. I think we should stop now talking about, we have delivered services to families now. Drinking water, electricity, gas, house, etc. I think we should now start targeting zero poverty and target it at a village level. By village, can we think of a method by which we can declare villages as villages with zero poverty? I think it's a very interesting concept floated by some people in the room. And I think the PM responded, it's a very good idea. Why don't we carry it forward at the village level, declaring places by as zero poverty villages, and that way you then are not talking about poverty in percentage or some broad numbers, 20 crore, 30 crores. You're talking of there is nobody poor there, and then moving on to other places. I think it's a very, very interesting concept. I will end here. I've covered about 80% of what was discussed. I took some time, and now I will leave it to the audience for questions. I'll also pass it on to the members and VC who can answer some of the questions. Thank you.
Yeah. Now we'll take questions, and I will request that please introduce yourself and your organization. So number 3, start with number 3.
Good evening. I am Priyashmita from Informist Media. I have 2 observations. One is related to the budget. The budget had a mention that after this financial year, the center will start targeting a particular debt to GDP ratio. In this context, the states would also have to set a particular debt to GDP ratio for themselves. So I just would want to ask, considering fiscal prudence is something that is on the panel for the governing council body, were there any conversation on this? And quickly, since Virmani sir is also here, who has great perspective on trade, I would like to ask, the budget also mentions about FDI from China. So since you're speaking about making states competitive for FDI, how do you see this Chinese FDI working out for India, especially when we have actually taken trade protectionist measures like anti-dumping duties or import restrictions? So these 2 things, please. Thank you.
I'll give a quick answer and then give it to Dr. Virmani. Neither of the 2 were discussed, so I'm putting it up front because they were not on the agenda. But I'm sure at some point in the future they will need to be discussed. Dr. Virmani?
Yeah, I don't think, I think this discussion is about the NITI program and what we discussed. I'll be very happy to answer your questions on Monday, Tuesday, whenever, but they are really not very related to the conference we've just attended. So just get in touch with my office. I'll answer both your questions.
I'll give another thing. You see, our agenda was prepared prior to the budget or even economic survey. I mean, this was circulated on 17th of July. So there was no way, we need a 10-day notice to give this. So obviously that was not to be. But I'm sure the NITI provides a forum for a lot of these things to be actually thrashed out. And I'm sure it will be.
78.
I would like to add to that. Though Chinese FDI was not discussed, Prime Minister discussed at length how to attract FDI. And he just talked based on his experience in Gujarat. So he just nudged the states that how they should attract FDI. He talked about ease of doing business, better governance, repeal of unnecessarily law, which may act as a sort of block for FDI to come to any states. So he emphasized a lot on FDI, but not specifically on Chinese FDI.
I could just say that the budget only referred to the glide path for the union deficit. It had no implications for the states, and this was really a discussion about the states with the states.
So, was there any discussion, sir, Anupam Mishra from All India Radio. So, was there any discussion about aspirational district program, or because all the themes like drinking water, electricity, everything is related to that?
Yeah. So last time aspirational districts figured very, right at the center. This time they were not on the agenda. You don't want the same thing every time. But it was clearly mentioned very early on by the PM in his opening remark that the aspirational model works because you have clear monitorable targets. There is transparent monitoring on a dashboard that enables people to perform. He was basically saying that approach should be adopted. So as and when a vision document is released, it will come with monitorable milestones. So at least you can measure, are you on track or not. I was very clear. He also said that all actions that are to be taken now onwards, once a vision is in the public domain, should be aligned with that vision.
123.
So that was B.R. Subramaniam, the CEO of NITI Aayog, who was addressing a press conference in the national capital on the 9th meeting of the Governing Council of NITI Aayog that the Prime Minister chairs. The Prime Minister is the chair of the NITI Aayog. He spoke about what transpired in that meeting. He said 26 states and union territories were present, 10 did not participate. The focus of the meeting was Viksit Bharat. There was consensus built on ease of doing business and ease of living in the meeting of the chief secretaries. He said that the Prime Minister urged the chief ministers and the states to come out with their own vision documents. FDI was discussed in that. He said that the Prime Minister spoke about the FDI, how to get FDI, and this was discussed at length. FDI walking right into the states. He said that skill census, river linkages, clean energy, new energy, hydrothermal, and zero poverty was what was discussed among the other things. Essentially, looking at a developed India or a Viksit Bharat. Well, that's it in this edition of DD India Live, but do let us know your thoughts of the day. You can connect